The following is an original production of Radio Sydney.
Have you seen photographs before when you can see right through the person?
Oh, yes. When I work with missing persons or presumed dead, that's normally how I can tell they're dead, is through a photograph.
And you can tell because you can see through their physical body in the photograph?
Yes. They stand out like almost 3D. If you're alive, it's 3D. If you're dead, it's flat.
Welcome to Seeing Dead People, the mystery storytelling podcast with a clairvoyant twist. Not only do we tell compelling tales of famous unsolved murders, missing persons cases, and supernatural events, we enhance our understanding to the uncanny insights of Darcy, a talented, professional British Columbian psychic medium. Hey, I'm Nicola, researcher, writer, and wannabe believer in the paranormal. I'm bewitched by unsolved mysteries and inexplicable experiences, and am dying to know more.
Hi, I'm Darcy. I am a psychic medium, and I see and talk to dead people.
Before we begin, I should let you know that I've taken a teeny bit of creative license to dramatize the chain of events in this episode. No fiddling with facts, just a few added embellishments to increase your enjoyment. I am, after all, a storyteller. So now please, relax, open your mind, and prepare for a riveting mystery and the psychic ride of your life. It may be delightful or disturbing, but we guarantee you will be entertained, informed, and plunged into dark and unsettling dimensions of which you've never even dreamed. We accomplish this using an original and fascinating twist on Seeing Dead People. As I begin to unravel the facts and lore of each episode's central question, I ask Darcy to share with us what emotions, relationships, and incidents she sees and hears from my words and from the photographs of the key people and places that I have sent her just minutes before we begin speaking. I encourage you to play along with us by checking out these pics on our Seeing Dead People website on radiosydney.ca. Another amazing element of Seeing Dead People is that I don't reveal anything about the show to Darcy before we begin. Not the title, not the subject matter, nothing. And just like you, she's hearing my version of this unsolved enigma and seeing the related photographs for the very first time. So her intuitive comments and reactions will be spontaneous, unrehearsed, and uncensored. In fact, we aren't even in the same room and cannot see one another. I know you'll be astonished at how close Darcy's revelations are to the actual circumstances and amazed at her intimate understanding of what events may have occurred. As a result of Darcy's singular experiences and unnerving explanations, we too can hear and see dead people. Seeing Dead People, Episode 4, The Haunting of Hatley Park. Hello, Darcy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself, Nicola?
I'm peachy, thanks, Darcy. Are you ready to mix with glamour and ghosts today?
I am.
Oh, good. Well, there's nothing quite like the draw and charisma of movie stars and movie making. Now, add a dramatic West Coast setting, a 40-room Scottish baronial-style castle, and top it all off with regular occurrences of ghostly apparitions, and you have the subject of this episode, the spectacular sprawling estate called Hatley Park, located just outside of Victoria, British Columbia. Have you ever visited that place, Darcy?
No, I haven't.
Oh, excellent. But you had visited its sort of brother mansion called Craigdarroch last time.
Yes, that one I have, but this one I haven't yet.
Okay, well, this has got to be on your list. You've got to go visit it. So today we're doing kind of a twofer on Seeing Dead People, as this episode follows our third one. But this time we're focusing on the next generation of the Dunsmuir family. You may recognize the Dunsmuir's Edwardian stone mansion as the set for many of your favorite movies like the X-Men series, DeadPool, and Poltergeist, but Hatley Park's top drawer reputation began a decade before even the invention of talkies, not to mention CGI and special effects blockbuster movies. In fact, during World War II, Hatley Park was given the nod by the British government as a possible sanctuary for the royal family. However, the Queen Mother famously said, "The children won't go without me, I won't leave without the king, and the king will never leave." As a result, Hatley Park's role as a Windsor family hideout never materialized. Now, not too many families build themselves multiple castles. I mean, that's right up there with this House of Windsor, folks, right? But as I mentioned in our last episode called The Cole King's Haunted Castle, the Dunsmuirs of British Columbia were a one-of-a-kind, stinking rich family. And, as I mentioned, today we're focusing on James Dunsmuir and his clan in the early 1900s. Okie doke, Darcy, let's have a look at the first exterior photo of Hatley Park, photo number 1. Anything or anyone jump out at you?
Well, first of all, when I first saw the photo, I thought, geez, that looks familiar. But now you answered the question for me, because if it was in the X-Files, that makes sense. Well, I feel like there's a lady standing on in the third floor window looking out.
Oh, that's fantastic, Darcy. You won't believe when we get to a little bit later in the show why that is such a cool observation.
Okay. And I keep expecting someone to step up with like a violin, like a whole orchestra.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
So, but yeah, the biggest one is the lady in the window. I feel there's a man essence and who should be on horseback riding across the field. And it's funny you said the name James, because I was thinking of James, but then again, I have a brother who died, and I thought, well, maybe it's just him I'm picking up on already.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, yes, this episode is about James Dunsmuir, so that's really cool. I'll tell you a little bit more about him, if I may.
You go right ahead.
Okay. He was born in 1851 and became an ambitious industrialist and politician, believe it or not. He was the premier of BC in 1900 and then became the province's lieutenant governor. James, as we may remember from our last episode, was the eldest son of Robert Dunsmuir, who was the richest man in Western Canada. But in a break with tradition, James was astonished to learn that neither he nor his brother inherited his father's house, the famous massive folly in Victoria with the crunching-sounding Scottish moniker Craigderrick Castle. Have a look, Darcy, at photos numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you'll get a sense of James Dunsmuir the man.
He looks similar to his dad, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Does one of these men, number 2, they're the same man, 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, they're all 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all of James Dunsmuir, some at different ages.
Okay, so I'm maybe jumping ahead, but he has one son at least, if not 2. Maybe he should have had 2 or 3 sons. But, do you know?
I do. He actually had 3 sons. 1 died in infancy, and 2 survived.
Okay. But there's the one who died in infancy, I would think maybe 6 weeks, 6 months old. I don't think he made it to 6 years, but I can see a young boy sitting on his lap.
Yep.
Okay. And, but then I also want to say that he must have been a military man at one point, because I see a military uniform.
Yeah, that's him in his regalia as being the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia.
Oh my God, I hadn't gotten to number 4 yet. I was just looking at 2 and 3.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, there you go. You caught him. That's what he became, the Lieutenant Governor, and he looks pretty spiffy in that outfit.
Well, doesn't he ever? Okay. Yeah, I can see that. He's got that feeling around him of being a lieutenant. So Lieutenant Governor, that actually makes sense. All right.
Okie dokie. Shall I continue?
You should.
Okay, so not inheriting his father's mansion nor the estate really ticked James off, and he launched a 17-year-long lawsuit against his own mother, Joan. She sued him back, and in the end, James was successful, but of course, they had a very fractious relationship. Over time, James divested himself of the business and turned to politics. As we mentioned, he became premier. And when he finally retired, he decided to adopt the life of a country English gentleman, hunting, fishing, and golfing. And for that, he needed some impressive digs. So in 1908, James Dunsmuir built his own spectacular castle, facing the indigo waters of the Esquimalt Lagoon and the Juan de Fuca Strait, and he christened it with the grand name of Hatley Park. "Money doesn't matter," he famously said. "Just build what I want." And what James wanted was a building 200 feet long and 85 feet wide, constructed of local granite and Gulf Island sandstone, and sporting a dramatic 82-foot-high Norman turret. And as you said, Darcy, you recognize it as Professor Xavier's school for the gifted youngsters in the X-Men. So, Darcy, let's have a look at the other exterior photos numbering 6, 7, and 8 of Hatley Park. Anything leap out at you?
I'm still picking up the horse.
Okay.
And I keep picking up the need for, like, okay, in number 8 in particular, I still see a lady standing in the window.
Okay, great. Well, you're going to find out that the lady in the window and the horse have something to play in this storyline.
Okay, and is there supposed to, like, is it so close to water that it, does it have a water feature in front of it now? Since I've never been to it, I don't know.
Yes, it has a number of spectacular gardens, which I'll mention later. But yes, it does have spectacular gardens. It does have water. It has a Japanese garden. It's got a lake. It's got all kinds of water features.
Okay.
Plus, it's facing the Esquimalt Lagoon.
Oh, right. That's funny because I thought that Esquimalt Lagoon is where I live.
Well, I'm talking the estate sprawls right down to the water.
Wow. All right. Well, and again, I can see someone on a horse. And there's a person in the distance. In number 8, if you look at straight on and to my left, there's a tree, and to me there's an image in between the tree and the castle.
And the images of what? A person? What kind of person?
I would say military. It sort of reminds me of the main one, like the one that was built before this with his father, it ended up being a military hospital. It reminds me very much of that.
Okay, Craig Derrick. Well, and as you'll find out, I'll tell you a little bit more about Hatley Park, and you'll find out why that might be the case.
Okay.
So inside this medieval-looking Hatley Park, it's just as impressive, with oak and rosewood paneled rooms, teak floors, multiple massive fireplaces, and all sorts of sumptuous furnishings, lighting, and interior finery. The grounds, as we've just spoken about, are 650 acres, and they run right down to the sea with towering second-growth firs and cedars and several formal gardens, of which the rose, Japanese, and Italian are the estate showpieces. Now, Darcy, we're going to move to James's family. He married a gal named Laura Searles from North Carolina. Over the next 18 years, they were blessed with a number of children. I'll let you look at Laura's photos, number 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, with her husband. What do you see from those photos?
Well, I would say she easily adapted to the life of being in a castle. Okay. She seems so strong. Okay, like there isn't anything that would faze her. As a young lady, I think she went in with open eyes.
Okay.
But she seems like the matriarch. That's what I was thinking of where she is, of her family and everything.
Yep. Well, that makes good sense. Have you an idea about their children before I tell you a little bit about them?
Okay, when I look at them, and I keep thinking they should have had, given the time and Aaron, if they got married, she doesn't look all that young, though, when they got married.
I'm not sure, Darcy. I know you're looking at the one where she's in that really formal gown. I don't think that's her wedding photo, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit later.
Okay, but even then, I would still think she wasn't as young as one would have been at the time.
Okay.
And as I'm looking at it, I would have said they could have possibly had anywhere from 5 to 8 children, because 2 passed for sure.
Right.
And then that would leave at least 5 alive.
Right. Well, they ended up having over 18 years. They were blessed with 9 surviving children, 7 girls and 2 boys. And as I said, unfortunately, a daughter and a son died. The son before aged 1 and the daughter before age 3.
So that means they had 11 children?
Exactly.
Oh.
I know. The poor woman.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Well, have a look at the photographs of the children. Pictures numbers 12 through to 14. They're all pretty well when they're kids, although there's one when they're a bit older. Does anyone or anything stand out when you look at those photographs? One of them, which in particular has their names actually written across them.
They do. Okay, so I'm going to take it Robin was the oldest.
Correct.
And James Jr.
Right.
I'm going to take it he lived, right?
Yes, he did.
So the 2 boys lived. Okay. It does say someone, Joan died at 3, Alexander died at 1.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I keep coming back to James. Do you know if he was the first dad of the boys?
Sorry, repeat that again?
James Jr.
Yes.
Do you know if he was the first dad of the boys?
The first boy to die?
From the group that's still alive, him and Robin.
Yes, he was. I'll tell you more about him exactly, but yes, he was the first to die between himself and his brother.
All right. And Merle stands out quite a bit as well.
Oh, okay. I don't know much about her. That'll be interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Unfortunately, none of the children shone like their father or grandfather. The oldest son, Robin, inherited his uncle's taste for alcohol, and he's wasted his life globetrotting, sadly. The daughters all married well, but lived what is considered to be unremarkable lives. There's one child, however, who had promise. Which one would you say that was?
Well, I'm going to guess it was James Jr.
Right, he's the only one left. Well, he was given the oh-so-British nickname of Boy. So he was called Boy Dunsmuir, not Jim Dunsmuir, interestingly enough, in his family. When he was 20, he was eager to fight for his country. This is during the First World War. So he's 21 years old, James Boy Dunsmuir, heads overseas. And you can have a look at some of the photographs. But before you do, just give me an idea. Do you have a sense of what might have happened to James Dunsmuir, Jr.?
Well, I'm not even sure if he made it overseas. My take of looking at him as a young boy would be that he died or disappeared. I'm going to go disappeared during the war.
Well, that's so cool, because he headed overseas in May 1915 aboard the luxury passenger ship, the Lusitania, steaming for England. You may have heard the story of the Lusitania. It's quite remarkable, because tragically 6 days later off the Irish coast, a German submarine's torpedo sent the Lusitania to the bottom of the sea. In less than 20 minutes, nearly 1,200 souls lost their lives, including young Boy Dunsmuir.
So he didn't even actually make it to the war.
Correct. He didn't make it across the ocean.
Oh, no wonder I was seeing water. Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense then, because before we got to the kids, all I could see is like water.
Well, I think sadly that's the last thing James Boy Dunsmuir saw.
Yes.
So as you can understand, of course, his father was heartbroken, and after his son's death, spent hours locked in his study playing a popular tune of the day called "Where Is My Wandering Boy Tonight?" It's an appropriately mournful song, as you'll hear in this brief clip of tenor Henry Burr's version from around 1903. Sadly, James himself died 5 years later, having never recovered from the loss of his boy Dunsmuir. When you look at James's photographs again, do you see anything else? The father.
With the father,
Mm-hmm.
the old man,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
I feel like, well, in actual fact, I am looking at the picture number 16.
Right?
And, okay, I guess it was a wedding picture for one of the daughters.
Yes.
And I look at James Jr. and the way he actually holds his father's hand, not his mother's. So I would probably say Dad mourned for his son.
Yes, they were, I imagine, quite close. And if you look at the photographs of Boy Dunsmuir himself, their photos 17, 18, 19, and 20, I think something large and four-legged will stand out.
Well, there's a horse.
Exactly. There's a horse. James Jr. loved horses, and he was on horseback often, and obviously in that spectacular photograph of him on horseback.
Okay, well, go back to picture 17 if you have it.
Yep.
And just behind the shoulder, there's the boy and his dad. And behind the shoulder of the father is an image of a horse in the wall.
Oh, wow. I hadn't noticed that.
Okay, and there is no picture behind them. It's just that that's where I saw the horse.
Is it? Okay, so you saw it in picture number 17.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, and then as I go down, and it's funny, if you go to picture 18,
Yep.
and you can't see it, but when I look at he's Boy Dunsmuir, age 14.
Yeah, he looks kind of like a very fancy Cub Scout, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I can see right through him. The light is playing on him at first. I thought there was a big hole in his chest.
You can see right through that image of that young man?
Yes, and I'm going to say that he'd already been marked for death at this age.
Wow. Because when I look at that photograph, of course, I just see a young man wearing a very cool-looking, old-fashioned Scouts kind of uniform.
Yeah, with the kilt. And,
with a kilt, yeah, of course he's Scottish.
You know, and the same thing in 19, he doesn't look in his eyes, you know, he doesn't have a long life. You just know it.
Wow, he's certainly that one photograph where it's just him, the sort of the three-quarter shot. He does look quite mournful, I have to say. He doesn't look like a guy but of course he's heading off to the war. I don't think I'd be, yipping and yaying either.
No, but there's just something about the look in his eyes.
Have you seen photographs before when you can see right through the person?
Oh, yes. When I work with missing persons or presumed dead, that's normally how I can tell they're dead is through a photograph.
And you can tell because you can see through their physical body in the photograph?
Yes. They stand out like almost 3D. If you're alive, it's 3D. If you're dead, it's flat.
Oh, okay. So it's obviously a person who's alive for you looks much more vibrant and has a real body.
Yes.
And so when you look at, well, then when Boy Dunsmuir was dead, but then his father is dead when you're looking at the photograph, Darcy. So how can you tell the difference?
Well, because with the father, I know he didn't die of a violent death, maybe sudden, yeah, heart attack by the looks of things, given the time and era. But the father's got a different sense. The boy, because there's a hole, it means it could have been a violent death.
Oh, okay. So the hole that you see through his body is an indication to you that the death might have been violent.
Yes.
And you see that when you are looking into other violent deaths that you know have been violent or that you suspect are violent?
Yes.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Okay. Wow. Well, then let's have a look at his poor mother in photographs numbering 21 and 22. I believe they're taken after Boy's death, so sometime in the mid to late 30s. She grieved, of course, for the rest of her life, but she had a thought in her mind about her son. So I'll let you look at those photographs of Laura and see what she might be thinking about Boy.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to he's lost.
Okay.
Like she feels he's lost, but he's not dead. She feels that connection to him, like a mother, like any mother has to their children. There is a spirit connection, and she feels like her son survived, but maybe and actually I'm beginning to think it's true that he did survive the torpedo, but he may have lost all cognitive knowledge of who he is. And that's what she's thinking.
Okay, that's what she's thinking, because when the Lusitania went down, it went down and everybody went down with it. There were no survivors whatsoever, and it was actually a trigger for World War One.
Yeah, no, there is no survivors, but that's what she's thinking.
Yeah.
If she's thinking it projects pretty strongly.
Okay.
That she thinks he's alive. That maybe he never got on the ship is what she's hoping.
Right, and I guess most mothers would think that, but it's fascinating that you are able to glean that, Darcy, because she was certain, and she told people, she was certain her boy would return to the castle and to her one day.
Well, he probably did upon her death, but I'm certain he's been there before her death.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think Laura Dunsmuir ever got to see him again.
No, I doubt very much she did.
Right. So when she died in 1937, the Canadian government bought Hatley Park, turned it into the Royal Naval College of Canada, and it later became known as Royal Roads Military College and is now Royal Roads University. So have a look at number 23, just out of curiosity. It's a brochure of the auction of the sale of Hatley Park.
Well, there are a few people in that area now. It's not just one dead person, there's several.
And what are you sort of seeing or feeling when you say that, Darcy? Where is that coming from, looking at the auction brochure, or it's just happening?
Well, it's happening, but also in picture number 20, which takes us back to the James Jr. on the horse.
Yep.
I can actually physically see other spirits all around him already.
Really? Okay, so we have James, and you twigged immediately that James and the horse were an item, and now you're saying, looking at that photograph of James aboard that beautiful horse, that you can actually see around him other spirits?
Yeah, and they could have come with the land. They could be people who were there when the building was put together, but when I look at the 23, I'm taking it as Mom's already dead by now. And his dad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the James Sr. and Laura are all dead, and Hatley Park is being sold off.
And I feel that they're there, like all three of them, and then maybe a few more of the kids, because it was their home. It's their heritage. And I think that Mom won't leave until she finally figures out that her son is with her.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting, because we'll be talking, of course, about the apparitions, because this is a ghost story. I'll just continue a bit here to fill you in on that part. So not only is Hatley Park estate larger and grander than Craig Derrick, which is owned by his father, it also boasts many more ghostly spirits. So I've got some shots of the interior of Hatley Park from around that time, about the early 1910s to 1911, 12. Have a look at photos 24 and 25. Do you glimpse anything interesting in those?
Well, the windows over in 25, I'm pretty sure that's where I'm seeing the lady stand.
Okay.
And in 24, I feel like is this the music or the room that the dad listened to music in? Because I sort of feel like this might be connected to his dad.
Okay, I can't tell you specifically whether the father had anything. I mean, obviously he would have used a lot of rooms in the castle, but I can't say specifically. But we do know that he played music endlessly, from what the research says, after the son died.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. They're both in. One is in the one room. The father is in 24, and there's a lady there too.
It must be getting crowded.
Yeah, there's a lady in there too, and in 25 is definitely where the mom is.
Really? And so when you're looking at those photographs, Darcy, are you seeing a shape of a person? Are you feeling a sense of a person? What tell us how you get this idea?
Okay, when I'm looking at the photo, it's at this point it's this sense, and sort of like in my head there's an image of a person standing by the window. I can see them in my head, but when I look in the photo I don't see it. It's just this feeling, this drawing that there is a person standing there waiting, holding the curtain aside and waiting.
And can you just give our listeners a sense of what is in those two photographs? What are they photographs of?
Okay, the 24th is like a drawing room or a living room. It's got doors to the side, a window, and there's furniture. Now, they may have rolled the furniture up at one point to do dances or to hold little get-togethers in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking there should be a piano or something in 24.
Oh, okay.
I look for it, but I can't see all the way around the room. And in 25, it's like a settee. I don't quite know what's in the back, but glass. And to the left side of the picture are windows. And you have to walk through a door to get to the windows, and that's where I feel that maybe Mom sat at the chair in the back where there looks like a chair and a table to write letters, and maybe lounged on the settee, and she would stand by the window. You know, like you hear of when they used to accept company, and they'd have a certain area where people would come in and sit, and you'd talk and everything, and then they'd leave, and it feels like this would be the room where people would come to meet her.
Oh, okay, because that's sort of like the parlor, I think, in those days it might have been called.
I wasn't too sure what it was called.
Yeah, well, that they would often say, come into the parlor. So you're right, that would be the fancy meeting place. Today we probably would have a living room, if anything, but they definitely had a room dedicated for guests. Yeah. Okay, well, almost as soon as the military cadets began living in the castle, once it became this military college around 1940, the poor guys experienced weird things during the dark hours of the night. Some felt suffocated and icy cold, like they were being wrapped in freezing cobwebs. Others swore they saw an apparition of a small old woman near their beds, sometimes even tugging up the blankets as though to see into their faces. One poor cadet even woke up to see this apparition plucking at his legs. When he struggled to break free, she just poof, vanished. Many believe this female phantom was the spirit of Laura Dunsmuir, desperate to find her lost son.
I can believe that. As you're talking, I'm so covered with goosebumps. I'm actually on a blanket. Yeah, I can believe that she wandered that castle, but I also think her husband wanders the castle waiting for his son.
Well, that's interesting because as far as I've heard, there aren't sightings of James Sr., but there's certainly sightings of Laura. And then there's also sightings of someone else. I'll give you a little clue. Some cadets and visitors claim to have spotted a young man roaming the Japanese gardens.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay. Is that the one where picture 26?
Yes.
Okay. When I look at picture 26, I see the willow tree, to me, has the image of a horse inside of it with a young man in the saddle. But they're like bigger than life. So they are right. He would be there with his horse.
Oh, cool. And from what people who visited the castle have said, he's looking very dashing because he's wearing his World War I uniform.
Oh, absolutely dashing.
Okay, so you believe that's Boy Dunsmuir returning to Hatley Park, just as his dear mother predicted?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to go back to a little bit of music here. Years later, when James's private study had long been converted to the college's commandant's office, "Where is my wandering boy tonight?" was heard echoing again through the corridors of the vast castle.
See? And that just proves to me that Dad's in that castle still waiting for his son as well.
You're right. That absolutely makes a lot of sense.
Because I would have said, as a female, if you kept playing that tune over and over, I'm going to bash it over your head, buddy. Okay? That's what I would be saying to my husband.
Well, you're quite remarkably insightful again here, Darcy, because rumor has it that Laura actually eventually raced into the study and tore the record out of her husband's hands and smashed it, stopping him from playing it.
Okay. Oh, my God. Okay.
So,
I even surprised myself, but that's what, it's like listening to someone play, you know, when they break up and they're playing that same tune over and over.
yep.
Okay, like my achy, breaky heart.
Yeah, right.
I've been known to throw out a cassette or two because of that. So,
I think we can all understand that and sympathize.
yeah.
Okay, well, you've often mentioned someone in a window, so I'm going to just go on to the last photograph, which is a modern shot of the castle's massive wooden staircase, photo number 28. Do you see anything of interest on that staircase?
Well, I love the windows, stained glass windows.
Yeah, beautiful.
Again, I would definitely put a lady standing there. But if you go down the staircase and to your right,
Okay.
I would say there's a lady down there as well.
And you know that they're two different individuals?
They do feel like two different individuals. One feels like a mother and the other feels like a daughter.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you there and say, okay, here we are. We have an image of a fantastic dog-legged massive staircase. And you're seeing an image of a younger woman and feeling that image, and you're seeing and feeling an image of an older woman in two different locations on that photograph?
Yes, the older lady is up and down the staircase as though she's waiting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and the younger lady is more to the right side opening, and she's standing there. I don't know if she's looking for someone, but I do feel like she is standing there.
Okay. Well, the other main apparition after Laura Dunsmuir that's been spotted regularly in the castle by naval cadets in the past and now visitors today is a crying young woman who is glimpsed walking through the halls. Sometimes she disappears through a doorway, or she just floats out a window to the sea. Rumor has it that this despondent young woman was a gal named Annabelle, Laura Dunsmuir's parlor maid. Poor Annabelle was about to be married, but she was jilted at the altar by her fiancé because he was a married man. So supposedly ashamed and mortified, poor Annabelle fled back to Hatley Park, rushed up the massive staircase, and did what?
Well, I'm sort of guessing she either hung herself or she jumped off of it.
She jumped out that third-story window to her death.
No wonder. Wow.
Poor gal.
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah, what a shame. So at the very beginning, as we started talking, you immediately spotted a woman in the third-story window, which is quite remarkable because that's Annabelle.
Well, with her, I'd really like to see her move on so she doesn't have to haunt that hallway anymore.
Oh, okay, well, we might have to add that to we're going down to the Victoria Golf Course and helping our gal moving on, and now we're going to have to go to Hatley Castle and do the same thing. We might have a regular gig here, Darcy, of helping people move on.
We could.
We could. Also, just the last couple of things that have been going on in this castle. Visitors and workers and staff have heard a small bell chiming. I don't know if you hear any sounds like that. And they have the kind of requisite doors and windows opening and closing, gusts of cold air, that kind of thing.
I could believe that because, as I said, I'm sitting here and it's nice enough out. It's not that cold. And I am wearing a blanket as I have been going through all these pictures.
So you're freezing.
I am freezing. I even said to my daughter, I walked over to my chair and I went, I'm not cold here. Then I walked back over, looked at the pictures, and I went, but I'm freezing here.
Well, that's interesting because I'm sitting in my shorts and t-shirt looking at the same photographs and not noticing anything. So there you go. One of us is a little more intuitive and sensitive than the other.
Well, that could be the case.
Well, I think, Darcy, I got to tell you, this has been really interesting. You are in such good company today, recognizing the variety of spirits haunting this amazing estate because the apparitions at Hatley Park are pretty famous. In 2003, even an episode of a TV series called Creepy Canada focused on Boy Dunsmuir and his ghost. And 4 years later, they had the visit with professional ghost hunters hunkering down overnight one winter and reported witnessing a variety of male and female spirits and experiencing areas in the castle which contained incredibly strong energies. So once again, well done.
Well, thank you. I have to admit, I did not realize that we had so many haunted places.
Me neither. It's quite remarkable.
I know. And I have to say that now I'm really encouraged to go and have a look at Hatley Castle. Do they allow tours?
Yes. Well, what they've done of late, because it is now actually Royal Roads University, it offers a Master's in Business Administration. You can visit the grounds without a problem. You can wander around, see the spectacular trees. The gardens are still maintained to some extent. And you can wander around the outside of the castle. I believe there are times that you can go in and have a short tour of the castle, but I think it's limited to the ground floor and limited to certain areas.
All right.
The actual grounds themselves, which are, I can say for fun, haunted by lovely peacocks, in particular a couple of albino peacocks, is really a spectacular afternoon out. I mean, just to go to Hatley Castle and wander the grounds is like going to some amazing estate with gardens, and it's just wonderful, and you're looking over the impressive ocean.
Well, I think my daughter and I are going to have to do just that then.
You will, and then you'll have to report back to us as to who and what you saw.
I will.
Okay. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Seeing Dead People. Whatever's going on in Darcy's head, I think is so cool and astonishing. We'd love to hear from you with questions for Darcy about her psychic process or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. So please, shoot us an email to info@radiosydney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes of Seeing Dead People will emerge on the first Saturday of every month and will also be available every Saturday night at 8 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10 a.m., both Pacific Standard Time. Seeing Dead People will also be available as a downloadable podcast online at radiosydney.ca for your convenience. Thanks so much for listening to Seeing Dead People. I really dig researching, writing, and communicating with Darcy and her otherworldly contacts. So until the next time, remember, Seeing Dead People is a blast, with goosebumps guaranteed.
This has been a program of Radio Sydney.